Hello, and welcome back to Storytime Banned Books Read With Me. I'm Kathleen Francis, and I'm very grateful that you have decided to join me once again as we continue and conclude our read of James Baldwin's If Beale Street Could Talk. The mind is like an object that picks up dust. The object doesn't know, any more than the mind does, why what clings to it clings. But once whatever it is lights on you, it doesn't go away. And so, after that afternoon at the vegetable stand, I saw Belle everywhere, and all the time. I did not know his name then. I discovered his name on the night I had asked him for it. I had already memorized his badge number. I had certainly seen him before that particular afternoon, but he had been just another cop. After that afternoon, he had red hair and blue eyes. He was somewhere in his 30s. He walked the way John Wayne walks, striding out to clean up the universe, and he believed all that shit. A wicked, stupid, infantile motherfucker. Like his heroes, he was kind of pin-headed, heavy-gutted, big-assed, and his eyes were as blank as George Washington's eyes. But I was beginning to learn something about the blankness of those eyes. What I was learning was beginning to frighten me to death. If you look steadily into that unblinking blue, into that pinpoint at the center of the eye, you discover a bottomless cruelty, a viciousness, cold and icy. In that eye you do not exist, if you are lucky. If that eye, from its height, has been forced to notice you, if you do exist in the unbelievably frozen winter which lives behind that eye, you are marked, like a man in a black overcoat, crawling, fleeing across the snow. The eye resents your presence in the landscape, cluttering up the view. Presently, the black overcoat will be still, turning red with blood, and the snow will be red, and the eye resents this, too, blinks once, and causes more snow to fall, covering it all. Sometimes I was with Fawny when I crossed Belle's path. Sometimes I was alone. When I was with Fawny, the eyes looked straight ahead, into a freezing sun. When I was alone, the eyes clawed me like a cat's claws, raked me like a rake. These eyes look only into the eyes of the conquered victim. They cannot look into any other eyes. When Fawny was alone, the same thing happened. Belle's eyes swept over Fawny's black body with the unanswerable cruelty of lust, as though he had lit the blowtorch and had it aimed at Fawny's sex. When their paths crossed and I was there, Fawny looked straight at Belle. Belle looked straight ahead. "I'm going to fuck you, boy," Belle's eyes said. "No, you won't," said Fawny's eyes. "I'm going to get my shit together and haul my ass out of here." I was frightened because, in the streets of the village, I realized that we were entirely alone. Nobody cared about us except us, or whoever loved us was not there. Belle spoke to me once. I was making it to Fawny's, late from work. I was surprised to see him because I had got off the subway at 14th Street and 8th Avenue, and he was usually in the neighborhood of Bleecker and McDougal. I was huffing and puffing down the avenue, carrying a package of odds and ends I had lifted from the Jew, when I saw him walking slowly up the avenue toward me. For a minute, I was frightened because my package, which had things like glue and staples and watercolors and paper and tacks and nails and pens, was hot. But he couldn't know that, and I already hated him too much to care. I walked toward him. He walked toward me. It was beginning to be dark, around 7:30. The streets were full. Homeward men, leaning drunkards, fleeing women, Puerto Rican kids, junkies. Here came Belle. "Can I carry that for you?" I almost dropped it. In fact, I almost peed on myself. I looked into his eyes. "No," I said. "Thanks very much." and I tried to keep moving, but he was standing in my way. I looked into his eyes again. This may have been the very first time I ever really looked into a white man's eyes. It stopped me. I stood still. It was not like looking into a man's eyes. It was like nothing I knew, and therefore it was very powerful. It was seduction which contained the promise of rape. It was rape which promised debasement and revenge on both sides. I wanted to get close to him, to enter into him, to open up that face and change it and destroy it, descend into the slime with him. Then we would both be free. I can almost hear the singing. "Well," he said, in a very low voice, "you ain't got far to go. Sure wish I could carry it for you, though." I can still see us on that hurrying, crowded, twilight avenue, me with my package and my handbag, staring at him, he staring at me. I was suddenly his. A desolation entered me which I had never felt before. I watched his eyes, his moist, boyish, despairing lips, and felt his sex stiffening against me. "I ain't a bad guy," he said. "Tell your friend. You ain't got to be afraid of me." "I'm not afraid," I said. "I'll tell him. Thanks." "Good night," he said. "Good night," I answered, and I hurried on my way. I never told Fonny about it. I couldn't. I blotted it out of my mind. I don't know if Belle ever spoke to Fonny. I doubt it. On the night that Fonny was arrested, Daniel was at the house. He was a little drunk. He was crying. He was talking again about his time in prison. He had seen 9 men rape 1 boy, and he had been raped. He would never, never, never again be the Daniel he had been. Fonny held him up just before he fell. I went to make the coffee. And then they came knocking at the door. 2. Zion. Fonny is working on the wood. It is a soft brown wood. It stands on his work table. He has decided to do a bust of me. The wall is covered with sketches. I am not there. His tools are on the table. He walks around the wood, terrified. He does not want to touch it. He knows that he must. But he does not want to defile the wood. He stares and stares, almost weeping. He wishes that the wood would speak to him. He is waiting for the wood to speak. Until it speaks, he cannot move. I am imprisoned somewhere in the silence of that wood, and so is he. He picks up a chisel. He puts it down. He lights a cigarette, sits down on the work stool, stares, picks up the chisel again. He puts it down, goes into the kitchen to pour himself a beer, comes back with the beer, sits down on the stool again, stares at the wood. The wood stares back at him. "You cunt," says Fonny. He picks up the chisel again and approaches the waiting wood. He touches it very lightly with his hand. He caresses it. He listens. He puts the chisel teasingly against it. The chisel begins to move. Fonny begins. He wakes up. He is in a cell by himself at the top of the prison. This is provisional. Soon he will be sent downstairs to a larger cell with other men. There is a toilet in the corner of the cell. It stinks, and Fonny stinks. He yawns, throwing his arms behind his head, and turns furiously on the narrow cot. He listens. He cannot tell what time it is, but it does not matter. The hours are all the same. The days are all the same. He looks at his shoes, which have no laces, on the floor beside the cot. He tries to give himself some reason for being here, some reason to move or not to move. He knows that he must do something to keep himself from drowning in this place, and every day he tries. but he does not succeed. He can neither retreat into himself nor step out of himself. He is righteously suspended. He is still. He is still with fear. He rises and walks to the corner and pees. The toilet does not work very well. Soon it will overflow. He does not know what he can do about it. He is afraid up here alone, but he is also afraid of the moment when he will be moved downstairs with the others, whom he sees at meal times, who see him. He knows who they are. He has seen them all before. Were they to encounter each other outside, he would know what to say to them. Here he knows nothing. He is dumb. He is absolutely terrified. Here he is at everyone's mercy, and he is also at the mercy of this stone and steel. Outside he is not young. Here he realizes that he is young, very young, too young. And will he grow old here? He stares through the small opening in the cell door into what he can see of the corridor. Everything is still and silent. It must be very early. He wonders if today is the day he will be taken to the showers. But he does not know what day it is. He cannot remember how long ago it was that he was taken to the showers. I'll ask somebody today, he thinks, and then I'll remember. I've got to make myself remember. I can't let myself go like this. He tries to remember everything he has ever read about life in prison. He can remember nothing. His mind is as empty as a shell, rings like a shell, with a meaningless sound. No questions, no answers, nothing. And he stinks. He yawns again. He scratches himself. He shivers. With a mighty effort, he stifles a scream, grabs the bars of the high window, and looks up into what he can see of the sky. The touch of the steel calms him a little. The cool, rough stone against his skin comforts him a little. He thinks of Frank, his father. He thinks of me. He wonders what we are doing now at this very moment. He wonders what the whole world, his world, is doing without him. Why he has been left alone here, perhaps to die. The sky is the color of steel. The heavy tears drip down Fonny's face, causing the stubble on his face to itch. He cannot muster his defenses because he can give himself no reason for being here. He lies back down on the cot. He has 5 cigarettes left. He knows that I will bring him cigarettes this evening. He lights a cigarette, staring up at the pipes on the ceiling. He shakes. He tries to put his mind at ease. Just one more day. Don't sweat it. Be cool. He drags on the cigarette. His prick hardens. Absently, he strokes it through his shorts. It is his only friend. He clenches his teeth and resists. But he is young and he is lonely. He is alone. He strokes himself gently, as though in prayer, closing his eyes. His rigid sex responds, burning, and Fonny sighs, dragging on the cigarette again. He pauses, but his hand will not be still, cannot be still. He catches his lower lip in his teeth, wishing, but the hand will not be still. He lifts himself out of his shorts and pulls the blanket up to his chin. The hand will not be still. It tightens, moving faster, and Fonny sinks and rises. Oh, he tries to think of no one. He tries not to think of me. He does not wish me to have any connection with this cell or with this act. Oh, and he turns, rising, writhing, his belly beginning to shake. Oh, and great tears gather behind his eyes. He does not want it to end. It must end. Oh, oh, oh. He drops his cigarette on the stone floor. He surrenders totally. He pretends that human arms are holding him. He moans. He nearly screams. His thickening, burning sex causing him to arch his back and his limbs stiffen. Oh, he does not want it to end. It must end. He moans. It is unbelievable. His sex trickles, spurts, explodes all over his hand and his belly and his balls. He sighs. After a long moment, he opens his eyes, and the cell comes crashing down on him, steel and stone, making him know he is alone. He is brought down to see me at 6 o'clock. He remembers to pick up the phone. "Hey," he grins. "How you doing, baby? Tell me something." "You know I ain't got nothing to tell. How you?" He kisses the glass. I kiss the glass. But he does not look well. "Hayward's coming to see you tomorrow morning. He thinks he's got a date fixed for the trial." "For when?" "Soon, very soon." "What do you mean by soon? Tomorrow, next month, next year?" "Would I tell you, Fonny, if I didn't know it was soon? Would I? And Hayward told me I could tell you." "Before the baby gets here?" "Oh, yes, before the baby gets here." "When is it due?" "Soon." His face changes then, and he laughs. He makes a mock menacing gesture with one fist. "How is it, the baby?" "Alive and kicking, believe me." "Whipping your ass, huh?" He laughs again. Old Tish. And again his face changes. Another light comes into it. He is very beautiful. "You seen Frank?" "Yes, he's been doing a lot of overtime. He'll be here tomorrow." "He coming with you?" "No, he's coming with Hayward in the morning." "How is he?" "He's fine, baby." "And my two funky sisters?" "They're like they've always been." "Not married yet?" "No, Fonny, not yet." I wait for the next question. "And my mama?" "I haven't seen her." "Naturally, but she seems to be all right." "Her weak heart ain't done her in yet, huh? Your mama back from Puerto Rico?" "Not yet, but we expect her any minute." His face changes again. "But if that chick still says I raped her, I'm going to be here for a while." I light a cigarette, and I put it out. The baby moves, as though it is trying to get a glimpse of Fonny. Mama thinks that Hayward can destroy her testimony. She seems to be a kind of hysterical woman. She's a part-time whore anyway, and that doesn't help her case. And you were the blackest thing in the lineup that morning. There were some white cats and a Puerto Rican and a couple of light brown brothers, but you were the only black man. I don't know how much that's going to mean. Well, one thing it can mean is that the case can be thrown out of court. She says she was raped by a black man, and so they put one black man in a lineup with a whole lot of pale dudes. And so naturally, she says it was you. If she was looking for a black cat, she knows it. Can't be none of the others." "What about Bell?" "Well, he's already killed one black kid, just like I told you, and Hayward will make sure that the jury knows that." "Shit, if the jury knows that, they'll probably want to give him a medal. He's keeping the streets safe." "Fonny, don't think like that, baby. We agreed when this shit started that we just have to move it from day to day and not blow our cool and not try to think too far ahead. I know exactly what you mean, sweetheart, but there's no point in thinking about it like that." "Do you miss me?" "Oh, God, yes." "That's why you can't blow your cool. I'm waiting for you. The baby's waiting for you." "I'm sorry, Tish, I'm sorry. I'll get it together. I really will. But sometimes it's hard, because I ain't got no business here, you know? And things are happening inside me that I don't really understand. Like I'm beginning to see things I never saw before. I don't have any words for those things, and I'm scared. I'm not as tough as I thought I was. I'm younger than I thought I was. But I'll get it together. I promise you. I promise, Tish. I'll be better when I come out than I was when I came in. I promise. I know it, Tish. Maybe there's something I had to see, and I couldn't have seen it without coming in here. Maybe that's it. Oh, Tish, do you love me?" "I love you. I love you. You have to know I love you, just like you know that nappy hair is growing on your head." "Do I look awful?" "Well, I wish I could get my hands on you, but you're beautiful to me." "I wish I could get my hands on you too." As silence falls, we look at each other. We are looking at each other when the door opens behind Fonny and the man appears. This is always the most awful moment, when Fonny has to rise and turn, and I have to rise and turn. But Fonny is cool. He stands and raises his fist. He smiles and stands there for a moment, looking me dead in the eye. Something travels from him to me. It is love and courage. Yes, yes, we are going to make it somehow. Somehow. I stand and smile and raise my fist. He turns into the inferno. I walk toward the Sahara. The miscalculations of this world are vast. The DA's office, the prosecution, the state, the people versus Alonzo Hunt, has managed to immobilize, isolate, or intimidate every witness for Alonzo Hunt. But it has fucked itself up, too, as a thinned Sharon informs us on the night that Ernestine borrows the actress's car and chauffeur to bring Mama home from Kennedy Airport. I waited for another 2 days. I thought, it can't go down like that. The deal cannot go down like that. Jaime said that it could. It would go down like that. By this time, the story was all over the island. Everybody knew it. Jaime knew more about it than I knew myself. He said that I was being followed everywhere, that we were being followed everywhere. And one night in the taxi, he proved it. I'll tell you about that another day. Mama's face, she too, is seeing something she never saw before. I couldn't go around anymore. For the last 2 days, Jaime got to be my spy, really. They knew his taxi better than they knew him, if you see what I mean. People always know the outside better than they know the inside. If they saw Jaime's taxi coming, well, that was Jaime. They didn't look inside. Sharon's face and Joseph's face. So, he borrowed somebody else's car. That way, they didn't see him coming. By the time they did see him, it didn't make any difference, since he wasn't with me. He was part of the landscape, like the sea, like the garbage heap. He was something they had known all their lives. They didn't have to look at him. I had never seen it like that before. Maybe they didn't dare look at him, like they don't look at the garbage dump. Like they don't look at themselves. Like we don't look. I had never seen it like that before. Never. I don't speak no Spanish and they don't speak no English, but we on the same garbage dump for the same reason. She looks at me. For the same reason. I had never thought about it like that before. Whoever discovered America deserved to be dragged home in chains to die. She looks at me again. You get that baby here, you hear me? And she smiles. She smiles. She is very close to me, and she is very far away. We ain't going to let nobody put chains on that baby, that's all. She rises and paces the kitchen. We watch her. She has lost weight. She holds a gin and orange juice in her hand. I know that she is not yet unpacked. I realize because I watch her fighting her tears, that she is really, after all, young. Anyway, he was there, Jaime was there, when they carried the chick away. She was screaming. She was having a miscarriage. Pietro carried her down the steps in his arms. She had already started to bleed. She sips her drink. She stands at our window, very much alone. She was carried to the mountains, someplace called Baranguitas. You got to know where it is to get there. Jaime says that she will never be seen again. There goes the trial, the prosecution having fucked itself out of its principal witness. We have a slim hope, still, in Daniel, but not one of us can see him, even if we knew where he could be found. He has been transferred to a prison upstate. Hayward is checking it out. Hayward is on the case. The prosecution will ask for time. We will ask that the charge be dropped and the case dismissed, but must be prepared to settle for bail if the state will concede it, if we can raise it. All right, says Joseph, stands, walks to the window, stands next to Sharon, but does not touch her. They watch their island. You okay? Asks Joseph, and lights a cigarette and hands it to her. Yeah, I'm okay. Then let's go in. You're tired. You've been gone a while. Good night, says Ernestine firmly. And Sharon and Joseph, their arms around each other, walk down the hall to their room. In a way, we are their elders now. And the baby kicks again. Time. But the effect of all this on Frank is cataclysmic, is absolutely disastrous. And it is Joseph who has to bring him the news. Their hours are, furthermore, now so erratic that he has to bring the news to the house. Without a word, he has managed to forbid both Ernestine and myself from saying a word to the Hunts. It is about midnight. Mrs. Hunt is in bed. Adrian and Sheila have just come in, and standing in the kitchen in their nightgowns are giggling and sipping Ovaltine. Adrian's behind is spreading, but there is no hope for Sheila at all. Sheila has been told that she resembles a nothing actress, Merle Oberon, whom she has encountered on the Late Late Show, and so she has clipped her eyebrows with the same intention, but not to the same effect. The Oberon chick was paid at least for her disquieting resemblance to an egg. Joseph must be on the docks in the early morning, and so he has no time to waste. Neither does Frank, who must also be downtown early. Frank puts a beer before Joseph, pours a little wine for himself. Joseph takes a sip of his beer. Frank sips his wine. They watch each other for a rather awful moment, aware of the girls' laughter in the kitchen. Frank wants to make the laughter stop, but he cannot take his eyes from Joseph's eyes. Well, says Frank. Brace yourself. I'm going to hit you hard. The trial's been postponed because the Puerto Rican chick, Dig, has lost her baby and looked like she's flipped her wig, too. Lost her mind, man. Anyway, she's in the hills of Puerto Rico someplace, and she can't be moved and can't nobody see her. She can't come to New York now, no way, and so the city wants the trial postponed until she can. Frank says nothing. Joseph says, You understand what I'm saying? Frank sips his wine and says quietly, Yeah, I understand. They hear the girls' low voices in the kitchen. The sound is about to drive both men insane. Frank says, You telling me that they're going to keep Fonnie in jail until this chick comes to her senses? He sips his wine again, looks at Joseph. Is that right? Something in Frank's aspect is beginning to terrify Joseph, but he does not know what it is. Well, that's what they want to do, but we might be able to get him out on bail. Frank says nothing. The girls giggle in the kitchen. How much bail? We don't know. It ain't been set yet. He sips his beer, more and more frightened, obscurely but profoundly. When is it going to be set? Tomorrow? The day after? He has to say it. If. If what? If they accept our plea, man. They ain't got to let us have no bail. There is something else he has to say. And I don't think this will happen. But it's better to look at it from the worst side. They might try to make the charge against Fonnie heavier because the chick's lost her baby and seems to have flipped her wig. Silence. The girlish laughter from the kitchen. Joseph scratches one armpit, watching Frank. Joseph is more and more uneasy. So, says Frank, finally, with an icy tranquility, we're fucked. What makes you say that, man? It's rough, I agree, but it ain't yet over. Oh, yes, says Frank, it's over. They got him. They ain't gonna let him go till they get ready. And they ain't ready yet. And ain't nothing we can do about it. Joseph shouts out of his fear, We got to do something about it. He hears his voice banging against the walls, against the girlish laughter from the kitchen. What can we do about it? If they give us bail, get the change together, how? Man, I don't know. I just know we have to do it. And if they don't give us bail, we get him out. I don't care what we have to do to get him out. I don't neither. But what can we do? Get him out. That's what we have to do. We both know he ain't got no business in there. Them lying motherfuckers, they know it too. He stands. He is trembling. The kitchen is silent. Look, I know what you're saying. You're saying they got us by the balls. Okay, but that's our flesh and blood, baby, our flesh and blood. I don't know how we going to do it. I just know we have to do it. I know you ain't scared for you, and God knows I ain't scared for me. That boy has got to come out of there. That's all. And we got to get him out. That's all. And the first thing we got to do, man, is just not lose our nerve. We can't let these cunt-faced white-ass motherfuckers get away with this shit no longer. He subsides. He sips his beer. They've been killing our children long enough. Frank looks toward the open kitchen door where his 2 daughters stand. Is everything all right? Adrian asks. Frank hurls his glass of wine onto the floor. It rings and shatters. You 2 dizzy off-white cunts, get the fuck out of my face. You hear? Get the fuck out of my face. If you was any kind of women, you'd be peddling pussy on the block to get your brother out of jail instead of giving it away for free to all them half-ass faggots who come around, sniffing around you with a book under their arm. Go to bed. Get out of my face. Joseph watches the daughters. He sees something very strange, something he had never thought of. He sees that Adrian loves her father with a really desperate love. She knows he is in pain. She would soothe it if she could. She does not know how. She would give anything to know how. She does not know that she reminds Frank of her mother. Without a word, she drops her eyes and turns away, and Sheila follows her. The silence is enormous. It spreads and spreads. Frank puts his head in his hands. Then Joseph sees that Frank loves his daughter. Both his daughters. Frank says nothing. Tears drop onto the table, trickling down from the palms with which he has covered his face. Joseph watches. The tears drip from the palm onto the wrist bone to splash with a light, intolerable sound on the table. Joseph does not know what to say yet. This ain't no time for crying, man, he says. He finally finishes his beer. He watches Frank. You all right? Frank says, finally, yeah, I'm all right. Joseph says, get some sleep. We got to move it early in the morning. I'll talk to you end of day. You got it? Yeah, says Frank. I got it. When Fonny learns that the trial has been postponed, and learns why, and what effect Victoria's disaster may have on his own, it is I who tell him. Something quite strange, altogether wonderful, happens in him. It is not that he gives up hope, but that he ceases clinging to it. Okay, is all he says. I seem to see his high cheekbones for the first time, and perhaps this is really true. He has lost so much weight. He looks straight at me, into me. His eyes are enormous, deep and dark. I am both relieved and frightened. He has moved, not away from me, but he has moved. He is standing in a place where I am not. And he asks me, staring at me with those charged, enormous eyes, you all right? Yes, I'm all right. The baby all right? Yes, the baby's fine. He grins. It is somehow a shock. I will always see the space where the missing tooth has been. Well, I'm all right too. Don't you worry. I'm coming home. I'm coming home to you. I want you in my arms. I want your arms around me. I've got to hold our baby in my arms. It's got to be. You keep the faith. He grins again, and everything inside me moves. Oh, love, love. Don't you worry. I'll be home. He grins again and stands and salutes me. He looks at me hard, with a look I have never seen on any face before. He touches himself briefly and bends to kiss the glass. I kiss the glass. Now, Fani knows why he is here, why he is where he is. Now he dares to look around him. He is not here for anything he has done. He has always known that, but now he knows it with a difference. At meals, in the showers, up and down the stairs, in the evening, just before everyone is locked in again, he looks at the others. He listens. What have they done? Not much. To do much is to have the power to place these people where they are, and keep them where they are. These captive men are the hidden price for a hidden lie. The righteous must be able to locate the damned. To do much is to have the power and the necessity to dictate to the damned. But that, thinks Fani, works both ways. You're in or you're out. Okay, I see. Motherfuckers. You won't hang me. I bring him books, and he reads. We manage to get him paper, and he sketches. Now that he knows where he is, he begins to talk to the men, making himself, so to speak, at home. He knows that anything may happen to him here, but since he knows it, he can no longer turn his back. He has to face it, even taunt it, play with it, dare. He is placed in solitary for refusing to be raped. He loses a tooth, again, and almost loses an eye. Something hardens in him. Something changes forever. His tears freeze in his belly. But he has leaped from the promontory of despair. He is fighting for his life. He sees his baby's face before him. He has an appointment he must keep, and he will be here. He swears it, sitting in the shit, sweating and stinking, when the baby gets here. Hayward arranges the possibility of bail for Fani, but it is high, and here comes the summer. Time. On a day that I will never forget, Pedrocito drove me home from the Spanish restaurant, and heavy, 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 I got to my chair and I sat down. The baby was restless, and I was scared. It was almost time. I was so tired I almost wanted to die. For a long time, because he was in solitary, I had not been able to see Fani. I had seen him on this day. He was so skinny. He was so bruised. I almost cried out. To whom? Where? I saw this question in Fani's enormous slanted black eyes, eyes that burned now like the eyes of a prophet. Yet when he grinned, I saw all over again my lover, as though for the first time. We got to get some meat on your bones, I said. Lord, have mercy. Speak up. He can't hear you. But he said it with a smile. We almost got the money to bail you out. I figured you would. We sat and we just looked at each other. We were making love to each other through all that glass and stone and steel. Listen, I'll soon be out. I'm coming home because I'm glad I came. Can you dig that? I watched his eyes. Yes, I said. Now, I'm an artisan, he said, like a cat who makes tables. I don't like the word artist. Maybe I never did. I sure the fuck don't know what it means. I'm a cat who works from his balls with his hands. I know what it's about now. I think I really do. But if I go under, but if I don't think I will, even if I go under, but I don't think I will, now. He is very far from me. He is with me, but he is very far away, and now he always will be. Where you lead me, I said, I'll follow. He laughed. Baby, 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 I love you. And I'm going to build us a table, and a whole lot of folks going to be eating off of it for a long, long time to come. From my chair, I looked out my window over these dreadful streets. The baby asked, Is there not one righteous among them? And kicked, but with a tremendous difference, and I knew that my time was almost on me. I remember that I looked at my watch. It was 20 to 8. I was alone, but I knew that someone soon would be coming through the door. The baby kicked again, and I caught my breath, and I almost cried, and the phone rang. I crossed the room, heavy, 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 and I picked it up. Hello? Hello, Tish? This is Adrian. How are you, Adrian? Tish, have you seen my father? Is Frank there? Her voice almost knocked me down. I had never heard such terror. No, why? When did you see him last? Why, I haven't seen him. I know he's seen Joseph, but I haven't seen him. Adrian was weeping. It sounded horrible over the phone. Adrian, what's the matter? What's the matter? And I remember that at that moment, everything stood still. The sun didn't move, and the earth didn't move. The sky stared down, waiting, and I put my hand on my heart to make sure it would start beating again. Adrian! Adrian! Tish, my daddy was fired from his job 2 days ago. They said he was stealing, and they threatened to put him in jail. And he was all upset because of Fonny and all, and he was drunk when he came home, and he cursed everybody out, and then he went out the door and ain't nobody seen him since. Tish, don't you know where my father is? Adrian, baby, I don't. I swear to God, I don't. I haven't seen him. Tish, I know you don't like me. Adrian, you and me, we had a little fight. But that's all right. That's normal. That don't mean I don't like you. I would surely never do anything to hurt you. You're Fonny's sister, and I love him. I got to love you. Adrian? If you see him, will you call me? Yes. Yes, yes, of course. Please, 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 I'm scared, said Adrian. And then in a low, different, altogether tone of voice, I'm scared. And she hung up. I put the phone down, and the key turned in the lock, and Mama came in. Tish, what's the matter with you? I got back to my chair, and I sat down in it. That was Adrian. She's looking for Frank. She said that he was fired from his job, and that he was real upset. And Adrian, that poor child sounds like she's gone to pieces. Mama. And we stared at each other. My mother's face was as still as the sky. Has Daddy seen him? I don't know. But Frank ain't been by here. She put her bag down on top of the TV set and came over and put her hand on my brow. How you feeling? Tired. Funny. You want me to get you a little brandy? Yes, thank you, Mama. That might be a good idea. It might help to settle my stomach. She went into the kitchen and came back with the brandy and put it in my hand. Your stomach upset? A little. It'll go away. I sipped the brandy, and I watched the sky. She watched me for a moment. Then she went away again. I watched the sky. It was as though it had something to say to me. I was in some strange place, alone. Everything was still. Even the baby was still. Sharon came back. You see Fonny today? Yes. And how was he? He's beautiful. They beat him up, but they didn't beat him, if you see what I mean. He's beautiful. But I was so tired. I remember that I could hardly speak. Something was about to happen to me. That was what I felt sitting in that chair, watching the sky, and I couldn't move. All I could do was wait until my change comes. I think Ernestine's got the rest of the money, Sharon said, and smiled, from her actress. Before I could say anything, the doorbell rang, and Sharon went to the door. Something in her voice, at the door, made me stand up, and I dropped the brandy glass on the floor. I still remember Sharon's face. She was standing behind my father, and I remember my father's face. Frank had been found, he told us, way, way, way up the river, in the woods, sitting in his car, with the doors locked and the motor running. I sat down in my chair. Does Fonny know? I don't think so. Not yet. He won't know till morning. I've got to tell him. You can't get there till morning, daughter. Joseph sat down. Sharon asked me sharply, "How you feeling, Tish?" I opened my mouth to say, I don't know what. When I opened my mouth, I couldn't catch my breath. Everything disappeared, except my mother's eyes. An incredible intelligence charged the air between us. Then, all I could see was Fawny. And then I screamed, and my time had come. Fawny is working on the wood, on the stone, whistling, smiling. And from far away, but coming nearer, the baby cries and 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 cries, cries like it means to wake the dead. Columbus Day, October 12, 1973, St. Paul de Vence. Fini. Well, that conclusion was a long time coming, and I really appreciate everyone's patience. It's not an easy read. And I apologize for the flubs, mispronunciations, and so forth. But I do want to also relate that I've had some comments about ideas for readings. I love that. Keep them coming. But I want y'all to know I'm focused on banned books, challenged books. And that really is the point. Also, I went ahead and I read all of it without buying the copyright. I'm probably going to do so because I love this and I love what I'm doing. And I hope you do too. But I can't afford to purchase every copyright. So it's very possible that while I work on this, some installments might be removed by YouTube, as has happened with Fahrenheit 451. And with all due respect, I'm still learning how to do this. Okay, so, and another thing, this channel, the idea is to inspire you to get your hands on these. Get these books into your hands, your friends' hands, your family's hands. Make sure you have access. Read them, share them, and read along with me. So, with that, I thank you all very much and look forward to reading for you all once again very soon. Thank you for joining me.